lockdown in the UK, a large crew of young citizen TV makers collaborated online to document the impact of restrictions on their everyday lives. Using their webcams, mobile phones, or whatever cameras they could lay their hands on, they interviewed friends, family members, and themselves to capture the concerns of a younger generation. This is their story.
Young people are being accused of socialising too much, resulting in the introduction of new social distancing restrictions.
Young people are not being responsible because they are not suffering from the virus in the way that older people do. They think, well, I'm not going to die. It's a boomer remover. Tough luck on them. I'll just carry on as normal.
The number of deaths is up 15 times since July as the young infect the old.
So don't infect your grandparents. Spreading the disease amongst young people then leads to older people getting it. You know, we will take action if people go to, you know, big social events that are completely inappropriate.
In mainstream media, you are constantly bombarded with the images of young people attending these mass illegal raves and having little to no regard over their own safety or others' well-being. Is actually really hurtful, having that generalization that all young people are these villains, are these monsters, are these people who are so self-absorbed in their own self-pity that they don't care about anyone else and that they don't care about society.
The media is being the death of me and probably of my kids. They bombarded everyone with the negative things of what was happening. I had to disconnect every single news in my mobile because I started having panic attacks. I was thinking that it was the apocalyptic situation where we all were gonna die, and I was going like a CSI situation to do the shopping and leaving the shopping in the car thinking to stay 24 hours to be disinfected.
There's a fundamental problem with the way that young people are being talked about and treated as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. Look no further than the scenes of students at the University of Manchester being caged into their accommodation to see a whole generation of young people stripped of their rights, being consigned to the bottom of the government's priority list.
Well, at Manchester University, accommodation officers erected metal fences around the perimeter of certain university blocks. They also had security guards patrolling the perimeter. This sent a clear message to students that they did not trust them.
There was no open discussion at all about our options for dealing with COVID. It was all just decided for us by a few politicians.
These are the new measures that will take effect nationwide.
I think it's unfair to say that we've been heard. I wouldn't even say we've been looked at. We've been a side thought all the time, and I completely understand that there were younger kids to cater to, but we're also a generation that if we get forgotten, like, we're a whole workforce gone, and I think that's quite shameful what they've done.
I understand that the government had to make quick decisions at the start and that they were unprepared for COVID, but I think it's been a year and there's no excuse for why they haven't let us contribute to these big decisions.
Unfortunately, yes, I did have COVID. I say unfortunately because I wish I could say I got it out of reckless ways, but I actually stuck by the rules and went to work like I needed to because I have to pay bills. And you know, one shift at work and you're coming back and you've caught COVID, and it was just, for me, I think it was one of the hardest points of the lockdown because I felt very, very alone. I think the reason why Britain's youth aren't protesting is because there's a lack of energy. We've been drained, you know. Some of us have been stuck in universities for months on end. Some people have been stuck and not seen their families months on end, and I think that's why we just don't even have a want to change anything.
I think the reason why students haven't been protesting about lockdown restrictions is because of the way that we've been demonised in the media as these super spreaders, when really we just want to get to the end of these restrictions and see our friends as soon as possible.
It's actually extremely hard, no matter how careful you are, to avoid getting coronavirus if your entire flat has coronavirus. It just takes a couple of people who have literally just gotten it by going out to the shops and doing a grocery shop for it to spread throughout your entire flat.
Many first years live on campus. In campus-provided accommodation is usually in big blocks with several other students. At my former university, there was 6 tower block accommodations that each housed between 100 and 200 students and had up to 16 students in a flat.
I came here the 21st of September, did my first quarantine, 14 days quarantine, and then in the very week that I got my freedom, on that Thursday, one of my friends in my household, I shared kitchen with like 10 girls. So one of the girls, she got tested positive. So I was urged to come back and did my second quarantine, 12 days quarantine. So I basically stayed in this room for a month.
The media has been focused a lot on, illegal parties and big gatherings, when most young people have been trying to be sensible, even more so than lots of adults who have been meeting up in smaller groups but have been a lot more relaxed about what the rules are and what they should do, really.
Youth unemployment currently stands at 14.2%. At the same time, young people are amongst the least badly impacted by the actual health effects of coronavirus. It goes to show that young people are being kept indoors, largely to keep more vulnerable groups safe than because they're at risk of catching the virus themselves. As a result, I think it's time that we start talking about young people as heroes of the pandemic, rather than blaming them for its spread.
I had a job just before the first lockdown, which obviously I had to be let go from. And I think that it's affecting everyone, but differently for young people, because at this stage, we're starting to find some financial independence. Jobs are much more competitive now, with a bunch of young people that have either identical or low-level qualifications. Is just going to be really hard.
I know so many people and have quite a lot of friends who are just really, really, really qualified, really, really talented, who are just really, really struggling to get a job. And it's just really, having been there, it's super demoralising and demotivating.
I've applied for a large number of graduate schemes, internships, unpaid positions. I do feel like I'm stuck in a rut. I've been unemployed for the last 9 months now. I am worried about my long-term job prospects.
I started working for a restaurant and in a film festival, which are two things that are very much in contact with the public. So as soon as the pandemic hit, that kind of disappeared. I don't know how many of the small businesses will be actually able to get back on track after more than a year with very low income and struggling. I know of many that were forced to close down during the pandemic, so
there's been so many people that are in a similar situation, and I feel like everyone kind of just skates over what a big issue this is for people. I mean, you hear politicians and the media acknowledge that we're going into a recession and that businesses have had to shut and that people have lost their job, and yet the government doesn't seem to think that this is a big enough issue for them to at least look into alternatives to lockdown. A guy from my work had worked over 30 years selling furniture at this store, and then the shop went bust and he had to be let go. So then he had to start working, doing deliveries and working in supermarkets at night just to try and help provide for his family.
Had I known lockdown was going to happen in advance, I probably would have taken greater steps to kind of securing future job security. Coming out of uni, I was pretty unsure and a bit worried about what I was going to do anyway, and the start of lockdown kind of accelerated those uncertainties, worries and fears, knowing that the economy was going to be in ruins at some point within the next year.
I was employed as a marketing assistant. I'd been there for about 6 months, and yeah, as soon as they announced the first lockdown, I was let go almost immediately. Felt quite rash and cutthroat, but I guess that's business for you. And then after that, I was just applying for jobs non-stop. Wasn't getting anywhere, not receiving any replies, no even confirmations of my application. It didn't feel good.
I lost my job during the first lockdown because of the business wanting to downscale. And I'm sure that a lot of people have gone through similar experiences and worse. So I think, yeah, lockdown has done a lot of harm to individuals, to businesses, and obviously we are on our third one now. I think that the results as lockdown for a deterrence mechanism of COVID, there's not a lot of evidence that it's working. So yeah, I would have to say it does more harm than good.
I did graduate from university in 2019, and then it's pretty much straight after that the whole pandemic went down and pretty much kind of ruined a lot of job opportunities that I probably would have applied for or maybe even gotten.
As a young adult, it feels like we have been taking our youth away because there are no plans you can do and there's so much uncertainty. You don't know when you're gonna have your next job. And also the fact that you are stuck at home all the time and you cannot see your friends makes you overthink so much and feel really depressed. And I think that it is really necessary to lift up the restrictions because otherwise we're just gonna go mental.
Working from home in my line of work, I'm calling up residents and basically there's no escape, so that residents are speaking to me over the phone and my daughter can also hear that conversation, and she comes up to me and asks me, "Daddy, why are the residents shouting at you over the phone?" And the fact also that there's no other place to go, you basically go from one room to another and it's quite a closed space.
So many people have been affected by a year of confinement without interacting, because we as humans are social beings, and without those interactions, I know some people have really been affected badly, in all honesty.
I'm actually a person suffering from social phobia, clinical depression and affective disorder type 3. It's a kind of a bipolar disorder, which makes me have my manic episodes. And the lockdown was really hard for me to get through because all of my friends left the country, my family is in another country as well, and my flatmates all moved out. So I'm going through it by myself, I'm just locked in the house.
At the start of the pandemic, many young people signed up to be volunteers in order to help shielding members of their community, and many still continue to volunteer today. In my experience, young people are all too aware of the deadly impact that coronavirus can have upon the elderly, especially as affected members of their own community are often within their own family. The suggestion that young people don't care about the elderly, or anyone else for that matter, seems a long way from the truth.
People haven't been able to go to doctor's appointments, hospital appointments, there's been mistreatments for cancer patients, and people have actually died because of not having their treatment.
COVID manifested itself in Britain at the beginning of 2020. At that time, the response in relation to elderly people was, because it was felt there were bed blocking in hospital, to move them to care homes. Consequently, people with COVID were moved to care homes, which led to major epidemics throughout the care home population in Britain. I think the deaths in care homes has been estimated at about 50,000 people.
I have a friend whose grandfather died due to not being treated because of the COVID pandemic, and he had cancer and yeah, he died. So I just feel like it's really sad because of course people should be focusing on treating COVID, but there's also many other illnesses as well. Like them illnesses have not gone away because COVID happened. So I feel like it's just important to treat other illnesses as well.
I I started my first year at university back in September, and what both myself and my peers immediately realised was how the university and the government were refusing to acknowledge how our year would be any different to any other year. So in terms of fee reduction, there was radio silence, and for myself, the student experience, for meal times, even now, we still have to sit in a sort of exam hall eating on separate tables.
Missing out on prom and the leavers party and things like that are just memories that I'll never have, which I found quite sad and I was quite disappointed about last year.
My entire uni experience just finished on a random day in March 2020. In my mind, I was constantly thinking of, the day that I graduate as sort of my motivation for getting through it. But having graduation cancelled was not the worst thing in the world, but it definitely was such a shame that students couldn't sort of celebrate and enjoy the fact that they had reached such a milestone in their life.
Because everything's online, there's limited support, and especially for those foreign students who are in uni, they're struggling. They're really struggling. I have a friend in America who actually is still paying for accommodation in London, which is extremely expensive, yet he has online lessons in America and he has a time difference which just isn't sustainable.
What I expected or imagined to have as an international student here would be like museums, theaters, parties, all them London stuff, But here I am, staying in my room, paying a lot for the tuition fee and getting student loan and asking for their parents for money to come here to listen to courses online. It's like, is it worth it?
This is the first opportunity for many young people to leave their home and venture in the world of independence and freedom. My penultimate year has been a profoundly digital experience. In these online meetings, students are encouraged to keep the cameras on and engage in class discussion as if everything is still normal. There is, however, a profound sense of loss. The sense of community spirit and student camaraderie has become lost in translation. The loss of the student bubble has fundamentally diminished students' motivation and academic performance.
I think that for young people, lockdown has been more damaging than good. Like university students who are living on campus, they're locked away and basically told to go over it. University is expensive. £9,000 a year is a lot of money to pay just to sit in front of a laptop screen.
COVID has greatly affected my education. I study fine arts, which is a practical course, which means we need a lot of time in the studios with a lot of resources that the university provides. And at the moment we've been working from home, we haven't had any studio access, which has made it really difficult to create good quality work. So I found that very hard. We don't get any time to speak one-to-one with our lecturers, or the time that we do get is very small. There's no social building, there's no meeting with other people, so just the university experience in general has been really lowered.
I find it hard to sit at a computer desk for 5+ hours and still retain all that information. When lockdown started in March, I was in year 11, I was supposed to do my GCSEs. However, because of lockdown, I didn't get to do it and I got my teacher's predictions, which was still amazing. However, being robbed of that experience of actually doing my GCSEs, I feel unprepared for doing my A-levels.
Students like myself with school, a lot of our motivation just declined a lot because we didn't know if we were going to go back, what exams we were going to take, or if it was worth keeping it up.
The impact of coronavirus on young people's education and employment is perhaps most obvious. But what about their social lives? In a year when dating someone new has been made illegal, We asked young people how this unprecedented level of government restriction is affecting their private lives.
People haven't been able to see family, friends, can't socialise or interact with each other. Human beings are very sociable creatures in general.
You can't go to the pub, you can't go to the bar, and this is where I'd normally meet new people, men, and since I can't do that, it's not been great. But you can go on dating apps and online dating, but it's just not as authentic. There's far too much choice, if any. And it's quite dangerous actually, because if you do end up meeting someone, you either have to do it in a park, which not many people are going to be around, or you go to their house, which is obviously worse. So I kind of put myself on pause, which has eaten up like a good year of my 20s, which I should be going out, drinking with friends and meeting new people.
There have been times when when it's been advised to not travel from different counties, and I've had to go to Cornwall to visit my girlfriend. Obviously, some people were not so happy about that. But it got to extend another relationship that if I didn't go down there, the relationship might not have worked. Yes, I broke some rules, but do I feel guilty about it? No. I was extremely safe. Have I broken the law? Yes, but I don't feel like I've done wrong. Which is a very strange feeling. Normally, if someone knows they've broken the law, they probably should think, oh, I've done wrong, but in this case, no. I don't think I've done wrong. There have been times when I've only meant to meet up with one person. I've met 2, 3 people in the park, all socially distanced. And it was something we all decided before, like, oh, this is what we're safe to do. And I remember my girlfriend having a real go at me, saying, oh, if everyone does that, then cases will rise. And yeah, I can understand that. I know it's just the idea of being limited on freedom, about how many people we can see, to what extent we're allowed to go to different places.
I have broken lockdown rules before. I think you'd struggle to find anyone that hasn't broken a single rule.
Who hasn't? My main lockdown rule that I broke was travelling. So I went to Suffolk in the summer, and it wasn't really a social sort of thing that we did. It was mostly secluded, just my family anyway. So it's fine. I don't think it really put people in danger per se, but it definitely did go against the rule of not travelling.
The problem is that the government doesn't trust us to be able to use our own judgment and common sense to decide what we think safe or not.
Young people's priorities for the post-pandemic era are telling. Clearly, seeing family comes first. But many are also desperate for the return of freedoms that they so badly want and need to make more of their lives.
Things I want to do post-lockdown would have to be going to a music festival. I absolutely love my music, and there's nothing in the world that beats being in a crowded, compact room or field, listening and dancing to your favourite music. I miss living life, and I can't wait to just live my life down the street, not have to avoid people, shake people's hands when I meet them, and just be normal again.
I've spent my entire adult life in a deadly global pandemic. And so, as a result, I'm still not quite so sure what being an adult is really about. Is it normal for an adult to have their theory test cancelled 3 times due to restrictions imposed by the government? Is it normal to not be allowed to go with your friends to a restaurant due to restrictions? Is it normal to not be allowed to have a haircut? Is this what being an adult is actually about?
Sometimes I'll just wonder what would it be like without the pandemic here.
I think overall the government and health advisors really need to go and evaluate the pros and cons of the different restrictions and really make sure that the benefits outweigh the costs, because I'm not sure that they do.